Line-by-line explanation of the poem This Is Just to Say by William Carlos Williams.
I have eaten. The poem begins with a simple, direct statement. The speaker confesses to having eaten something, immediately creating a tone of honesty and informality. The use of I makes the poem deeply personal, while have eaten suggests that the action is completed, leaving no room for undoing it. This opening sets up the idea of an apology, but without any immediate expression of regret. The casual nature of the statement makes it feel like a note left behind in a shared space, adding to its intimacy. The plums. Here, the object of the speaker's action is revealed. The mention of plums adds a sensory detail that will become more important later in the poem. Plums are often associated with sweetness and ripeness, and their presence in the poem suggests both temptation and indulgence. By specifying the fruit, the speaker begins to shift the focus from a mere confession to an appreciation of the experience that we're in. This phrase starts to provide context about the location of the plums. It builds suspense by making the reader anticipate where exactly the plums were kept. The speaker is not just admitting to eating them but also emphasizing that they had a specific place, possibly meant for a specific purpose. This adds to the underlying tension in the poem, as it suggests that the plums were not simply available for anyone to take. The icebox. By mentioning the icebox, the speaker provides a crucial detail that enhances the sensory imagery of the poem. The plums were refrigerated, which means they were likely meant to be eaten later in a specific way. The word icebox also evokes a sense of coldness, preparing the reader for the description that will follow. Additionally, it gives a glimpse into a shared domestic setting, reinforcing the idea that the speaker was aware they were consuming something that belonged to someone else. And which. This phrase acts as a bridge, connecting the previous lines to an anticipated consequence. It signals that the plums were not just any plums, they had a specific significance. The use of and makes the sentence feel like a continuation of a thought rather than an isolated statement, reinforcing the poem's conversational tone. You were probably. Now, the poem introduces another person, the you who had ownership of the plums. The use of probably is interesting because it suggests that the speaker is making an assumption rather than knowing for certain. This uncertainty softens the confession slightly, making it seem as if the speaker is aware of a possible mistake but is not entirely sure how the other person will react. Saving. This single word changes the tone of the poem significantly. It reveals that the plums were not just casually stored but were being kept for a specific reason. The act of saving implies intention and planning, making the speaker's action seem more selfish. It adds to the gentle guilt of the confession, as the speaker acknowledges that they have disrupted someone else's plans. For breakfast. The reason for saving the plums is now clear. They were meant for breakfast, a meal that suggests routine and nourishment. This detail adds weight to the speaker's action. It was not just a random indulgence, but one that directly impacted another person's expectations. Breakfast is also often associated with the start of the day, meaning that the other person may have been looking forward to eating the plums, only to find them gone. Forgive me. This is the only direct plea for forgiveness in the poem. However, it does not sound deeply remorseful. Instead, it comes across as more of a polite request than a heartfelt apology. The brevity of the phrase makes it seem almost casual, as if the speaker expects to be forgiven without much consequence. This line reinforces the poem's playful, almost mischievous tone. They were delicious. Instead of dwelling on guilt, the speaker shifts to describing the experience of eating the plums. The word delicious highlights the pleasure they derive from their act, making it clear that they have no real regrets. This shift from apology to enjoyment makes the poem more complex. It is not just a confession, but also a celebration of indulgence. So sweet. Here, the sensory appeal of the plums is emphasized. Sweetness is associated with pleasure and satisfaction, reinforcing the idea that the speaker enjoyed eating them. This line also makes the act of eating seem almost justifiable. The speaker is sharing the joy they experienced, as if that alone should be enough to excuse their action. And so cold. The final line completes the sensory experience. The word cold ties back to the earlier mention of the icebox, reinforcing the refreshing quality of the plums. Ending on this note allows the poem to linger on the physical sensation of eating rather than on the guilt of taking something that was not meant to be eaten. This closing suggests that, despite the request for forgiveness, the speaker ultimately values the pleasure of the moment more than the consequences of their action. Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.